Starting with the determination of the quorum.
Mr. Chairman, we have 6 present and 1 absent.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all for coming this evening on a very cold evening. Todd and I had a brief conversation to decide whether or not we should try to reschedule, and given the challenge we had in scheduling the last one and the fact that it was going to stay cold for another day or so, we thought we'd just go ahead and do the meeting. So thank you all for making it on this cold evening. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we have a very short agenda, a number of things to do tonight, but mostly formalities, so this should go very quickly. We have on the agenda, the original agenda, there's a work session after this, but we actually don't have any items for the work session with things getting closed. There won't be a work session after this meeting. So we'll start with the item 1B, the election of officers for 2014. Before we do that, I want to clarify some things about process about election of officers. Last year when we did this, some questions came up about the process we used, so I want to make note of those as we start that process. Anyone on the board can nominate someone for officer of the board. The board member does not need to be present. We looked into that question because Tom was not going to be here this evening, so trying to make sure that we were kosher with that. And we haven't found any reason to think that we can't nominate Tom for vice chair as he looked into. Nominations do not need to be seconded. This is something that I was under my understanding was that nominations need to be seconded. They do not need to be seconded. Those who are nominated can choose to decline the nomination if they would like, but they don't need to. What else was I going to say? I also read it's good form to nominate people who have expressed an interest in being nominated. So that would be good form, but certainly not a requirement. So I just wanted those things clear as we go into the nomination process, because there were some questions about that last year. So going into that, I will entertain nominations for chair of the Faribault School Board.
Mr. Chair, I'll nominate Jason Engelbrecht.
All right, thank you. Any other nominations?
I want to nominate Howard Bodie.
So Howard has been nominated.
Can I decline?
You absolutely can decline. Yep.
I decline.
Okay. Howard declines to be nominated.
Thank you, though, for your vote of confidence. But
The reason, can I?
Sure.
Yeah, the reason is traditionally on this, as long as I've been on, I think even before that, that a chair serves either 1 or 2 years, and you're going for your third, and that's why that either Howard or Tom, or I suppose I could nominate Tom too, but he can't say. But this is unprecedented to go for 3 years. That's why. Give it a kind of a change, new blood. That's all it is.
Just a point of clarification is, and I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Olson, but there isn't anything in policy
No, there
that
is not.
states that it has to be limited terms. So it's basically just past practice.
That's correct.
And past practice is only as good until the next practice starts.
That's right. That's correct.
But there isn't anything in policy that
No.
prohibits Jason
No.
from serving 3 years. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other nominations? All right, hearing none, and with Howard Bodie declining his nomination, this leaves just Jason Engelbrecht on the ballot. Any further
We need a
comments or
second.
nominations?
We
We don't need a second.
Oh, we don't need a
You
second.
don't need a second for
Oh,
nominations.
okay.
That was my misunderstanding in
Oh, all
previous
right.
years. So
Okay.
we looked into that, and there is not a requirement for seconds for nominations.
Okay.
We could take a second, but we don't need a second. We
Right.
don't require a second.
It's not required.
All right.
You have to announce it 3 times, I think.
Request 3 times for nominations.
Yeah, for each, yeah, I believe so.
I think we're on time two.
Procedure, I know. Now, that is how.
That is procedure,
Yeah,
yes.
that's procedure, not past practice.
I'm happy to do 4 or 5. Are there any further nominations? All right, hearing none, is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of Jason Engbrecht as chair of the Faribault School Board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No,
Mr. Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Mr. Chairman, I vote aye. Tom Casper's absent. Deb Davis.
Aye.
Yvette Marthaler.
Aye.
Richard Olson.
no,
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye.
And Jason.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, be 5-1 in favor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Next item for vice chair. I'll now entertain nominations for vice chair of the Faribault School Board.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Tom Casper.
And Tom did indicate, if you'll recall at the last meeting, that he had an interest in continuing to serve in that capacity. So,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to again nominate Howard.
You know, I like being clerk.
Oh, okay,
Well, you're assuming you'll be elected clerk.
Well, if
Yeah,
I'm not,
yeah.
I'll go without, but I kind of enjoy being clerk.
That's good to know.
Thanks.
That's
Thanks.
good to know if you're coming to Howard.
to be formal about it, does that indicate that you are declining the nomination?
I am. I'm just getting used to how to use that stand, you know, so.
So Mr. Bodie declines the nomination for vice chair. We currently have a nomination of Tom Casper for vice chair. Any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any further nominations? All right, then we have nominated Tom Casper for vice chair of the Faribault School Board. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor of Tom Casper as vice chair of the Faribault School Board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, item 3, nominations. I'll entertain motions at this time for nominations for clerk.
Can I nominate Howard?
As you wish.
Please.
Yes. Okay.
His last name is Bodie, just to make sure that we clear for the record.
Howard Bodie has now been nominated for clerk.
Could you ask us if he wants it?
Are you going to decline this nomination? You've been nominated for clerk of the Faribault School Board.
So far, I kind of enjoy it.
So,
So I would be willing to do it again.
all right. Good to hear. Any further nominations for clerk? Any further nominations? Any further nominations? All right, hearing none, is there any, we'll close nominations. Howard Bodie has been nominated for clerk of the Faribault School Board. Is there any further discussion on this item?
I just want to, just so you know, because I know that we had some comments last year about the formality, it's customary to say nominations 3 times, but it's not required in Robert's Rules of Order. So just so everybody's aware of that. But it's a customary thing that a lot of boards do.
It's custom, it's not in the
It's
policy.
not in Robert's Rules.
Okay. I didn't see it in Robert's Rules, I didn't know if it was someplace else.
No.
Okay. All right, so is there any further discussion on the nomination of Howard Bodie for clerk? Hearing none, all those in favor of Howard Bodie as clerk of the Faribault School Board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is treasurer. I'll entertain nominations for treasurer of the Faribault School Board.
I'll nominate Deb Davis as treasurer.
I decline, but thank you. I'm a little busy with graduation.
Well, yeah, you do have a graduation coming up, don't you?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Yvette Marthaler.
Okay. So Deb Davis has been nominated and declined the nomination. Yvette Marthaler has been nominated as treasurer of the Faribault School Board. And willing to accept the nomination? Okay. Are there any further nominations for treasurer of the Faribault School Board? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, we have Yvette Marthaler nominated for treasurer of the Faribault School Board. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you for giving me another year to serve as chair on the Faribault School Board. I am excited to be chair during a year in which I don't anticipate needing to go out and propose a levy. I have much excitement about that, and I'm very excited about all the discussions that are going on in our district right now as we move forward, and I look forward to joining you in those discussions during this following year. Next up are committee appointments. Traditionally, we simply go through these committees and examine the names. I have the names from previous years. Does anybody else, who doesn't have the names from previous years in front of them? Probably a good starting place if you're trying to keep notes on who's serving on which committees. Do you have more copies of this? You don't have more copies? Deb, you can look on with me a little bit. Oh, you've got it in front of you. Okay, thank you.
It was in the packet, right?
It's in the packet, yes, it is. Yep, yep. Just as a point of reference, as we go through this year, under the assumption that many of the people serving on committees will stay the same. So we'll go through this list as we have in past years. So we'll start with finance in the finance committee. Last year that was Deb, Howard, and Richard. I guess we'll need to have Yvette on the finance committee, so that means at least one of those members will need to not be serving on that, as we can't have 4 board members on a committee.
I'll step down.
So Deb Davis will be stepping down. Yvette will be on there. And then I don't want to make assumptions. Howard, Richard,
I would like to keep on the finance,
continue on
sir.
the finance committee. Howard, do you have an interest in,
Yes.
is there anybody else with an interest that we should discuss the finance committee, or are we good with that as our representatives? So hearing that then, I have down Yvette Marthaler, Howard Bodie, and Richard Olson serving on our finance committee. Jerry Robichaud was our representative for the Schools for Equity and Education. Do you have an interest in continuing on? Does anybody else have an interest in doing that?
I would continue with the commitment to be a little more diligent about getting to those meetings,
Okay,
because Todd won't pick me up by a
all right.
Yep, next time.
Is there anybody else with an interest in that would like to also participate, or? Okay, with that then, I'll leave Jerry's name in that. The insurance committee has been Deb Davis and Richard Olson. Desires to change that in any fashion on the part of Richard or Deb?
I like to, it doesn't, maybe once or twice a year, if that.
Right, yeah.
If that, I know once a year, so.
Anybody else
That's the
with a desire
commitment.
to serve there? Okay, hearing
It'd be-
none, we'll leave that.
Did you want to?
I'll say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's right, you're good with medical field, okay.
Yep, yep, so hearing no comments on it, I'll leave that as marked down as Deb Davis and Richard Olson. Policy committee is currently Yvette and Jerry. Who on there would like to stay on there? Who would like to join that committee?
I would like to join the policy committee.
So I would could step down.
All right. So Deb has stepped forward to serve on the policy committee. Jerry, are you interested in continuing to serve on that? Any other interest in serving on the policy committee? Okay, hearing none, and we'll leave that with Deb Davis and Jerry. We have some cooperative agreements for which we need some representatives. They are for Alexander Park. Yvette, you were our representative there. Are you interested in continuing on in that? Okay. The ice arena has my name on it. I would not mind sharing that with someone else if anybody else has an interest. I always feel bad I'm the only person who shows up who has no children who skate or do hockey or anything, but I don't know that we have any board members with that connection, so I'm on a committee with a lot of hockey parents.
Their park, I suppose they can cover both of those areas. If you need a break.
No, I'm okay serving on it, I don't mind, but I always do feel a little bad that I don't have a, it's not a passion of my heart for the ice arena, I don't spend any time there. But I do recognize its importance to our schools, our hockey teams and others spend a lot of time there, so it's important for us. And, it's an excellent facility that serves us well. Soccer committee has been Richard and myself. Any desire, Richard? or
I'd like to
continue?
stay on it.
Okay. I'm happy to stay on the soccer committee. Any other desires or thoughts on that? Again, I'm happy to share with that, but I'm also happy to stay on. State high school lead has been Howard Bodie.
I
More
can
interest?
stay on it,
You okay in
unless
staying on
somebody
it?
else wants it.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Moving along, Deb Davis and Yvette have served us on the wellness committee. Is there a desire to continue in that capacity? Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have an interest in serving on that committee? Hearing none, I'll leave that as is. Curriculum committee has been myself and Tom. I have a pretty strong desire to stay on that, particularly in this next year. I know Tom has a very strong desire to stay on it, so I think the two of us would like to stay on it. There is room for a third if anybody had a desire to be a part of that during this next year. All right, hearing none, we'll leave it as is. Superintendent Evaluation Committee has been Tom, Jerry, and myself. I think I would like to continue on that capacity. Tom has indicated he's willing to stay on. Jerry, are you interested in continuing on in that capacity? And we should soon have this next round of evaluation
Yeah, we're
ready to
just
go
in the
for-
process of doing the 360 right now, so.
Advisory Council for Community Ed Advisory Council has been Tom and Jerry. Again, Tom expressed his interest in continuing on in the things he's doing currently, so I know he's interested in staying. Jerry, do you continue to have that interest? Anybody else with an interest? There is room for a third if there was an interest. Okay. All right, hearing none, then the list for this year looks exactly like it did last year with the exception of Yvette and Deb switching their roles on Finance Committee and Policy Committee. School assignments is a later one, so that's not part of this. Okay. Any further discussion on these assignments? I think I need to entertain a motion to approve these assignments as specified.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve these assignments to the committees as specified. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a schedule for school board meetings, which we need to approve. Let me find that here. I think we have seen this before. You can see the meetings and the locations. How confirmed are we on these locations at this time?
There are the May, December, and January meetings location, it needs to be determined, but it kind of depends on how things go.
So just a question, we are going to the city hall?
Well, I haven't been told otherwise yet, so we can revise this, when things.
Nothing's written in stone. I just wanted to know what.
Right.
We have these dates reserved for City Hall is what we have
Oh,
right
yes,
now. Is
yes.
that's right? And
Mhm.
we
Yep.
chose to move them, we would advertise that. and
Right.
move on.
Yep, and we're looking at a space right now in the high school to have a meeting in there as well, so we're just
Yes.
trying to figure out all the mechanics.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So location is still being worked on, although at this time we have these reserved here as stated, and so they can stay on the agenda as this for the time being. Any further discussion on the schedule of meetings for the school board for the upcoming year? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the schedule of meetings as described here. All those, is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. School board salaries. Last year, the board made a decision to forego salaries for the year. I think at the time, a number of us expressed that we were not trying to set a precedent. That was an out of sorts sort of thing. That was not something we had done, but in light of the failure of the levy the past year and the finances we were facing last year, we wanted to make that. I don't think there was a precedent set that we should do that. Prior to that year, the salaries were at $250 per month for directors and $275 per month for the board chairperson. I'd also mention for those who maybe don't have as much of a history, those salaries have been reduced twice since my time on the school board, my first year on the school board, my second year on the school board, so 4 and 5 years ago. The salaries were reduced both of those years, and these salaries here reflect those reductions.
Reduced from what?
I think it was up to $300 a month at
It
one
was
point?
300, then the chair like 350. And that, can I make a motion that,
Yeah, I just want to clarify that first, and then we can make whatever motions
Okay.
you'd like, if you don't mind.
That
just
sounds
clarifying.
right. It sounds-
There was about
It
$300
was
a
a-
month, I think, when I first joined the board, with a little bit of extra for the chairperson at that time, and then it changed slightly the next year. And went down my first year, and we brought it down again a little bit the following year. And then it stayed at this level until last year when we decided to forego the salaries. So this level would reinstate the salaries to what they were prior to the,
2 years ago.
prior to this past year, 2 years ago. Okay.
for the board members 300, then for the chair 350?
Is there a second for the motion for a salary of $300 for school board salaries and $350 for the board chairperson?
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a second for that, for salaries at the $300 and $350 per month level. Discussion on this item.
Mr. Chair, just to let people know, I'll be voting against this motion. I still think as elected officials, we're not elected for a compensation, we're elected for a public service. And I don't believe that we should be compensated for the service that we give to this community.
I would like to second what Jerry just said, because that's what I was going to say. Yes, we passed the levy, but isn't our responsibility for the children? It's really not to give ourselves a pat on the back with money.
So, thank you for those comments. I want to say some comments sort of to the other end. I think, I don't think anybody on this board at this moment is doing it for the money. I don't think a salary, whether or not it's $250 or $300 for most of us at this meeting right now, would be doing it for the money. But I have two concerns with not having a salary for the board. One of which is that even if the current board financially states that this amount of money is not important to us, that may not be true for every board member. I can speak of I know of a specific board member in the past for whom the salary of the board was a very important part of their income. And I think when you want to have an inclusive board, having a salary that compensates people for their time, for those for whom that's important, is something that's important. Otherwise, what you say is the position is only for those for whom money is not an issue. And I don't think we want to set that precedent. I'd also say, I think being on the board has expectations with it. And I think when you don't pay salaries, you make it a volunteer position. And frankly, I think my expectations for a volunteer position are different than they are for a professional paid position. We don't ask our teachers to be volunteers. And while I agree completely, and I'm happy to let any individual forego their board salary, and I commend them for that, personally, I think having a board salary is important to reflect the importance of the position as much as anything else. This amount of money would be significantly less than the city council. I would also say I would prefer us to put our salaries back to where they were, not the $300 or $350 level. but it's significantly less than the city council for an organization that is significantly larger. I think our budget is larger than the city's budget. And yet, we asked the board to be volunteers, and I think that's not appropriate for the level of organization we are running and the commitment that we ask for each other. So those are my 2 cents. I understand it's very difficult to take a vote to give yourself a salary, but I think it's important that we recognize the position and not simply think about that. So those are my,
Mr.
that was more than 2 cents, that was probably 50 cents.
Mr. Chair, that, you know, we could have where if you want to take a salary, you take it, the ones that don't. But it's not like all or nothing. I mean, it just, you know, as compared to city council or county commissioners, we do have meetings, you know, we go to committee meetings, and we do a lot of work. And I agree with you on that, Mr. Chair.
I will make one statement because I did give my salary back to the school board one year. If this passes, everyone does have to get paid no matter what. I got a paycheck and had to give the money back to the school district. So, it is my option to give it back
Sure.
to the school district,
Right,
but
right.
Yeah.
if we decide then everybody does get paid, then
Then you can, right, you can do what you, of
yeah,
course.
you'd write a check back to the district.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I understand, and yes, if it is the majority of the vote to go with it, I understand the dynamics of that. And not to make this a debated public issue, is that I believe that our teachers are there for a salary because that is part of their job. I don't think anybody on this board has ever looked at teachers as a volunteer basis. And they should be rightly compensated for what they do. This is not a full-time job for any one of us on this board. And for us to say that we should be compensated for providing a service to this community, I think just provides an inappropriate message or a wrong message. We are not on this board, at least I don't think we are, I should speak for myself, for any compensation that comes along with it. And I would ask anybody who is serving on this board, did they run for the board because they were going to get compensated? Or did they run because they wanted to provide a service for the education of students? And I don't think we should be equated with the county commissioners or the city council. They wish to compensate themselves, that's their choice. And I don't think we should be put in the same, painted with the same brush as the city council and the county commissioners.
I would agree with that somewhat, but I would also agree with what Jason said. It could be a position where someone is not working, that they're doing this job in lieu of working somewhere in the future. And maybe none of us are in that position currently, but if we did have an inclusive board, someone could be choosing not to work during the times when we're at the meeting. So this would give them some compensation.
Mr.
I've
Chairman,
said enough.
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman.
I'm gonna speak in favor of the motion, and it's largely because of what you said about the difference between a volunteer job and one that you get some compensation for. Even if it's a small amount, I think some compensation does kind of make you think about that job a little bit differently. And we just signed up for a bunch of committee assignments, and you know, it's easy to sit back and say, well, that's just a volunteer job. If I miss that meeting, that won't matter much. Or I've got other ways, other things I can do today that'll make me some money, and I can't afford to go to the meeting. And so you balance that off with your attitude about the job. And I think I wouldn't want to say that none of us care about the students and the schools, that we aren't responsible. That's not it at all. But I think when you really get pressed for time and so forth, and you've got a volunteer job versus one you're paid for, you look at it a little bit differently. The other reason I speak for it is we need to recruit good school board members to run. And you never know why people say no to a job, but it could well be an unspoken reason why they don't, is because it's strictly volunteer. And I think if there's some compensation, at least you feel like you're valued. And so I'm going to vote in favor of the motion. And I think $300 is not excessive. I think that's, I know the hours that I put in, and that doesn't amount to very much per hour. nor for my mileage either.
The reward becomes intrinsic, not extrinsic.
I would agree.
What does that mean?
It means that you're doing a good service and not having to necessarily be rewarded financially for it.
Can't argue with that.
I won't say any more.
Yes, you will.
On this subject.
We'll see if we hold you to that or not.
Talking about last words, though, my last word is I just do not think it's in the best interest of our board to go year after year without accepting a salary, and then that becomes the norm. And I think it was okay to do it last year when we didn't pass the levy, but I don't think it's in our best interest to not pay salaries, because we need good quality people on this board.
Are there any further comments on this? I am personally debating whether or not to entertain no, I think I'm just going to do it. I'm going to make a motion to amend the motion to put the salaries at their previous level of $250 per month and $275 for the board chairperson, so that they're at their level that they were right there. So that's an amendment to the motion that I would make at this time, to reflect my desire to try and keep things in light of where they were, and not have to describe a raise to the community at this time, but to feel like we're going back to where we were. So that's the motion. Can fail for a second here. And
I'll second.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask for a second there, but that was the time for a second here, if there was one. There's a second to the motion made to amend the original motion for the salaries to be at the level of $250 and $275 per month for the board members. Any discussion on that amendment at this time? So now we're discussing the amendment and not reflect the salaries. Any discussion on the amendment?
Well, I'd like to hear from the maker of the amendment.
Yeah, with the idea being that this is likely the entire story that shows up in the newspaper tomorrow, and also having to go out there, while these salaries are small, I think to discuss something that sounds like a raise, I think to be able to say we're reinstating our salaries at the levels they were, to talk about a raise is difficult for me to bring up at this time. $300 per month is roughly a $50 raise, and that's a 25% raise, and I don't want that headline, to be honest. And I don't want to have to describe that to the community. I think in either case, to be frank, either amounts of money are not a huge impact on the difference between the two is not a huge impact on the school district, and so those are my thoughts. And
Just out of curiosity, do we know what other school districts pay their board members?
I can only sort of speak anecdotally. I've looked at this before. They're kind of all over the map. I think you would be hard pressed. There are a few maybe that don't pay school board members, but not very many.
Pretty few, few and far between. I don't, right off the top, I don't know of any that,
Winona used to be over $1,000.
yeah, I think most are
Some
higher.
Some are significantly higher, some are lower, some are right in the ballpark. So we're not out of the realm in either direction, I don't think. We're not well below everybody else. There are school districts that pay less, and there's school districts that pay substantially more.
And what most board members do if they want to not accept the salaries, they take the pay, knowing that that pay is going to be equal amongst all of you, and then they either buy technology equipment or they donate the money back at the end of the year. So it's just a personal preference.
Any more discussions on the amendment to the motion, which is for a smaller, for a $250 per month for board members and a $275 per month for the board chairperson? Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, would you please do a roll call on the amendment to the motion? So at
I'm
this
going to
point-
vote aye for this. And Deb Davis,
No?
Yvette,
Aye.
Richard, Olson,
Sure, yes.
Jerry
On the amendment.
Robichaud,
On the amendment.
No, because it still references compensation. So no, Mr. Voting
Jason
Clerk.
Engbrett.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, it's 4-2 in favor.
All right, thank you very much. So the newly amended motion now is for the compensation of the school board to be at the level of $250 per month for board members and $275 per month for the board chair. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, would you please do a roll call on this item?
I will vote, and what, you better state the motion again?
So the motion is to set the salaries of the school board at the level of $250 per month for school board members, for directors, and $275 per month for the board chairperson.
Mr. Chairman, I vote aye. Deb Davis,
No.
Yvette Marthaler,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud,
No,
and Jason Engbrett.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, 4 in favor and 2 against.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. So the motion carries. I hope this is the most contentious issue we have all year long. I appreciate all of your frank discussion on this item. It's not easy to talk about your own salary, particularly at a public meeting, but I appreciate everybody's frankness about our discussion. Next up are school assignments. You can see what they were last year. Jerry Robichaud was at Jefferson, Howard Bodie was at Lincoln, I was at Roosevelt, Richard Olson was at the middle school, Deb Davis was at the high school, Tom was assigned to the Area Learning Center, and Yvette was at McKinley Early Childhood Center and McCreck Cannon River Education Center. I think we'll just start the discussion by asking, is there anybody who would like to express a preference in where they would like to be, to either switch or stay where they are?
I'd like to just stay where I am, please.
Okay,
So would I.
I would also.
As would I.
all right, I'm not hearing any discussion on changing assignments. Hearing no discussion on that, then I'll entertain a motion to leave assignments for the schools, board members' assignments to schools as they were for 2013 for the year of 2014. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I know we had a discussion about this some time ago too, is what is the role and responsibility, if you will, probably not responsibility, what's the role of this a school assignment? And I know that, Todd, you had done some work with the principals, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind just refreshing us with some kind of a communication in the next week or so as to what is it that the principals and the staff expect from a board member who's assigned to their building. It'd be very helpful again.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and send that out to each of you.
Thank you.
Could we ask you to extemporaneously tell us what you expect?
Well, what's really nice is to have a representative show up at the buildings, once the principal has outlined what the expectations are with each of the board members. And then a lot of times they'll show you in a classroom, or they'll introduce you to a building project or something that goes on within the building that the building administrator thinks is something usually it's something that's new and exciting that they can show off to the board members and the board reps. So we'll line something up and give you a tour, and it doesn't have to be a full day or a half day, it can be just a couple of hours.
And could you say something about what it is not?
It is not going in there, well, you can certainly teach in the classroom if you want to, get in front of the kids and try, so yeah.
It's not a supervisory position.
No, no, it's there to be just respectful
It's
of
not
the
our
staff.
job to
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
the schools in any fashion, the
Yeah.
principles that belongs to them, and
And quite honestly, this board has been terrific about that whole piece of it.
I think the schools tend to like heads up. Everybody there is working hard and is busy, and so I think I tend to not showing up without giving somebody some notice, I think is important. Everybody's working hard, and I think to respect that is important. As we,
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
important to check in the office too, just so the principals know that the
Yeah,
board members
yeah.
are in
we
the
shouldn't be
building.
wandering around the buildings
Yeah,
without
yeah,
checking.
it gets-
Security
Teachers.
wouldn't let us just wander the
Right,
building
right.
anyhow.
No.
So there's safety concerns that should happen. We should be following the same rules we
Yeah.
expect of anybody else in the public.
Yeah.
All right. Did we have a motion and a second? Have we voted on this item? I don't think so.
No, no.
Okay, so any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The school board, the school district is required every year to approve a news organization as the official publication source for things going on in the Faribault Public Schools. We have always chosen the Faribault Daily News to provide that for us. And so I'll entertain a motion to consider the approval of the Faribault Daily News as the official publication source for the Faribault Public Schools.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Oh,
please.
yes, as a delegate assembly member, there is a resolution, I don't know what school district brought it forward, but to cut costs, that, to have it on the internet, basically. So that's a resolution, they bring it to the legislature, is it approve or disapprove, but, so. So that's what was voted on, and it was approved that by majority, vast majority, that they would just like to just do it on the internet and not, have to spend the costs.
Right.
You're referring to the minutes of the board and the,
Anything,
yep.
Any
that
notices
refers-
that we post? Because right now, we're required by law to
Right,
post
yeah,
the
yeah,
notices
this
for
is-
meetings.
right.
And what you're saying is,
to save, the main thing is to save costs of the
it's been
district.
suggested that the
Yeah.
state could change the law.
Right, yeah, I'm just
It's
saying
being
what,
proposed to the state
Right,
to ask them
that's
to change
correct.
the law, says it has not changed in any fashion.
no, it's not.
But it could get considered such that
It
this would
could.
be an online publication. At the moment, though, we are required.
Yes,
as you
that's
know.
correct, yes.
You're simply saying that it could change in the future.
Just a question, and it brings up an interesting point. Does it say specifically in law that it has to be a newspaper or official publication, which can be interpreted as internet access?
I have no idea what officially it says in law.
If it
Does
says
anybody
it's
else know?
newspaper, obviously, you have to have written publication. But if it says a official notification or publication, could in fact be the district website.
Can I get that to Todd, the resolution?
Yeah, I
What they
can go,
brought in, and they have all facts, then he can email it,
yeah, and they'll
Did
probably,
you-
they'll talk about it at the MSBA
Yeah.
conference too in January.
but there, some district proposed,
Yep. It's happened at the city level too, it's not
Yeah.
just the public school level.
Yeah, just,
like you said, the main factor was cost savings. Cost savings.
right.
We'll
Right,
look
and I would say posting things online is probably more accessible these days than the newspaper is.
Yeah, I'm
More
not going to,
people-
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the language is.
But anyway, at the moment, I'm not sure that we know of that, and I would not be inclined to change that at this moment. But it certainly would be interested in looking at what the options might be. So I will entertain a motion to approve the Daily News as our official publication source.
I have,
Did we already get that
Yes,
motion?
you
in a
did.
second? Thank you, sorry, I'm just track. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, thank you all. And then last, we have approval of a local education agency representative. Todd, you need to remind me a little bit what that is.
Yeah, the state asks for a representative for a lot of our grants and our curriculum areas.
No?
And normally what we do is we declare a person who normally is a curriculum director, and in this case, it's Colleen Cardenuto as our local education agent. So when the state refers to that, then we have to have a name that's attached to it, and she's a logical choice.
Okay. All right. It specifies the position, not the person in this case.
Yeah, and I would go ahead and even specify the person because of some of the other situations with our policy that we've had. So I would go ahead and actually say our Director of Teaching and Learning, Colleen Cardenuto, would be our LEA.
All right. So I will entertain a motion to approve Colleen Cardenuto, our Director of Teaching and Learning, as the superintendent's designee to act as the local education agency representative for the Faribault Public Schools for the 2014-15 school year. I would entertain that motion at this time.
So moved.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Lastly, please,
Before you adjourn,
yes.
I have one thing, if you guys, I'm sort of out of the loop right now with my job, but on Facebook, I got something from the Faribault High School band about the mural in the student center. It is unbelievable.
Really quite awesome.
Yeah, so
The Booster Club
everyone
put up a
should-
mural in the
in the-
cafeteria, right, of the
in
high
yeah,
school.
in the-
And
Takes
it's,
up a whole
it's
wall.
amazing. It's an entire wall. It's pictures from the past of Faribault High School students, and it's quite amazing.
Actually, up through 2013.
And staff.
And
yeah.
staff, yeah,
And
so.
it's like I said, it's just amazing. It's black and white, and then it says Faribault Falcons in green, but that's see-through, so you can see the pictures behind it. And then the doors on the one end are painted green, and it says Faribault Falcons in white.
The Booster Club has done a number of projects and has more in mind of some, I don't know how to describe them, upgrades to the aesthetics of buildings around the district. And
Yeah.
that's been one example, the field,
Bruce Smith Field.
Bruce Smith Field and its facilities have had a renovation done to them to update their look, and things are just looking remarkable, and we appreciate that as well.
Yeah, from the Booster Club. And also, if you want to make a note for me, Kathy, we'll send maybe a quick photo to all the board members so they can take a
That would
look
be-
at it, and we'll
Yeah.
give you a good shot of it through the email.
Yep.
Or maybe Deb already has a picture.
One
Hold
a quick item, Todd, a grievance has been filed by one of our,
Yep.
some paraprofessionals. The
Yep.
paraprofessionals union has a grievance that's been filed. The way that grievances work is there's a contract, and so when they disagree with something that's happened in the district that they think violates the contract, they file a grievance. It first goes through the, I think, building principal typically,
Then HR.
then up to the HR department, then up to the superintendent. After it goes through superintendent, then it comes to the board level, and this one has reached that level of coming to the board. And so a meeting has been set up for,
Actually, tomorrow night,
At-
tentatively right now, because school has been
We'll have
closed,
to see if-
we'll have to
if-
see. But if there's anybody available tomorrow night,
at
the
5.
first one's at 5 and the second one's at 6. If anybody's not doing anything, and it's, Nicole and I can kind of fill you in on the details of it, but
Be really
We'd like
nice
to
to
have
have, I think, 2 board members there to
yeah,
represent
2
that.
usually is
I
best.
can't make the 5, I could make tomorrow night's a rough night, so if it got rescheduled to a different night, I could.
Is there 2 grievances?
No, well, yes, yeah, but they're gonna have it at the same time. It's basically the same thing. 2 different individuals. But we could use a little help with a couple of board members if you guys have anything.
Well, we need some board members there, right?
Yes,
'Cause
That's-
board-
that's the next
board
step.
grievance,
Yeah.
right? So,
So it is tomorrow night?
yeah, tomorrow night. And if it doesn't work, we can reschedule another night, but that was the best night
if we
for,
can get a couple people
the
tomorrow
pairs
night,
and
if
the
not,
union.
we'll have to reschedule.
So it couldn't be solved at principal or year level?
correct.
It, okay, it just, okay,
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
thought it could, but it didn't.
that's it.
I might have to work, because it's not their job, but I might not. I
Yeah.
can let you know at 9.
Yeah, that'll work.
Nine
If you want to let me know tomorrow morning,
Okay.
that'd be terrific.
And what's his next step to be on the board?
That's it.
That's it?
Arbitration, I guess they'd go
Yeah.
to arbitration.
Binding arbitration?
Yeah, for us, that would be the last thing that we would do, but then they can file arbitration for an agreement.
Unfortunately, Facebook won't come up.
Oh,
Well,
I'll take a picture.
I
yeah.
think, yeah, so Todd needs to know here relatively soon, I guess, if you don't know by tomorrow morning.
That's potential.
Um,
Potential.
But I think we
I will
want
be
2
at
people there. I'd
school.
prefer to have 2 board members represented, not just 1. So, we'll see. I guess, we don't need to decide right this second. If 2 people don't get a hold of Todd, then
I'll give you a call.
Then-
Yep,
then
I'll send it stuff.
we'll reschedule as quickly as we can. Okay, those are all the items of information that I have. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.